One of the most explosive stars in St. Louis wrestling history is featured today on SICW Wrestling Explosion. Hello, this is Larry Matisic. Wrestling at the Chase began almost 55 years ago. SICW recognizes that anniversary with a spectacular card in East Carondelet, Saturday, May 17th. SICW also salutes the number of headliners who became international stars because of what they did here. Today we'll look at one of the wildest, King Kong Brody. St. Louis was special, Brody was unique. Brody's in action right after this.
King Kong Brody and Abdullah the Butcher. You can see why people in St.
Even after wrestling at the Chase had ended, the fame of King Kong Brody thrived. In fact, SICW promoter Herb Simmons brought Brody to Dupo High School in the spring of 1987, and the place was packed. It's Brody versus Abdullah the Butcher. And near the end of the battle, keep an eye open for a very young Gary Jackson trying to help restore order.
The Butcher. And you know King Kong Brody. Well, you know it's not Luthez against Pat O'Connor. But that's what makes wrestling great, because you have different styles and different ways to attack people. And there's one way: stand on the throat of Brody when you weigh about 400 pounds, as Abdullah the Butcher did. Abdullah the Butcher was a very controversial character. He wasn't in any one territory, any one town for a very long time, because really he was just hard to handle. King Kong Brody had a reputation like that sometimes too. But ironically, a lot of people thought that Brody would not get along with promoter Sam Muchnick in St. Louis, and it was just the opposite. They became very good friends. If you asked Brody who were the three promoters that he respected the most in the wrestling world, I'm sure he would have told you. The Giant Baba in Tokyo, Japan, Paul Bosch in Houston, and Sam Muchnick in St. Louis, because he knew if they gave each other their word, if they shook hands on it, that's the way it was going to be. No shaking hands here as Brody and Abdullah the Butcher. Brody with a cut opened up on his forehead already from Abdullah the Butcher, and watch Butcher like a shark, scenting blood, smelling it, going after the wound, going after the injury on Brody's head. Abdullah the Butcher going after his long-avowed enemy, and King Kong Brody wanting to finish it once and for all. Dupo, Illinois, the site, as King Kong Brody finds himself almost fighting for his life against Abdullah the Butcher, as Abdullah starts pounding on the head of King Kong Brody. Abdullah never was shy about using anything he'd find. He's picked up forks, he's picked up bottles, he's picked up all sorts of foreign objects. He'd do anything he could. To him, wrestling was a war. And his most exciting matches were against people like King Kong Brody, who said, well, I can wrestle. If I have to, I can throw drop kicks. I can do hammerlocks. But if you want a war, I'll give you a war. Right now, though, the war was not going in the way that King Kong Brody wanted it to go. Abdullah pulling back on the head of Brody, turning Brody into that corner. Abdullah putting the pressure on. Headbutt by Abdullah the Butcher. Brody staggered, bleeding. Referee Lee Warren keeping an eye on things, but he's probably knowing best right now is just let them slug it out. Find out who's the toughest, who's the meanest, who's going to last the longest. Brody making a comeback. He hits the ropes, and a big boot right to the top of Abdullah the Butcher's head. Abdullah the Butcher taking another kick, another boot from King Kong Brody, another kick right to the jaw. Abdullah the Butcher hanging onto those ropes, in deep trouble now. And you can see that a cut has been opened up on the head of Abdullah the Butcher. Abdullah bleeding as Brody pounds on Abdullah the Butcher. Brody hitting the ropes again, wanting every bit of extra energy he can get for a kick up against the ear of Abdullah the Butcher. Herb Simmons was probably wondering right there, boy, what did I get myself in for with a main event like this? Abdullah the Butcher and King Kong Brody. But I'm sure that Herb Simmons at that point was like every other fan in that building. He was standing in rapt attention, watching every move these two giants of wrestling were doing. Brody, Abdullah trying to destroy each other. Brody with a chop to the head of Abdullah. Brody on the offensive now. Abdullah hanging onto the ropes, trying to keep his feet as Brody pounds on the head, pounds on the lacerated head of Abdullah the Butcher. The blood spilling out of the forehead, down the chest, down the arms of Abdullah the Butcher. Abdullah in deep trouble now. He had the offensive early, but now King Kong Brody lashing out with all his might, with all his fury, and Abdullah the Butcher in deep, deep trouble. Can Brody put him down? Can Brody get his shoulders on the mat? Can Brody make him say that he'll quit? Well, it's going to be tough. And Brody knows it, even going to biting King Kong Brody. Lee Warren, the referee, who's been in so many big matches by this point in his career, knowing that this might have been his toughest challenge, trying to keep some sort of order between Abdullah the Butcher and King Kong Brody. Abdullah fighting back. A chop to the head. Remember, Brody was already cut. Abdullah pitching Brody through the ropes outside the ring. Remember, this is a high school gym, and like all high schools, they're pretty protective of their floors, so the crowd was all up in the bleachers, and it gave Brody and Abdullah room to roam. Maybe that wasn't such a good thing. They're fighting outside the ring now, looking for the furniture they can use on each other, trying to batter each other into destruction. Brody picks up the ring bell and slams it into the head of Abdullah the Butcher. Abdullah reeling after taking the bell to the head, but then he slams Brody's head into a table. Brody grabs a chair. Look out. Abdullah the Butcher catching the chair right across the forehead. Brody going after Abdullah with the chair again, trying to drive it into the throat of Abdullah the Butcher, but the Butcher, he's like a tank. You can't destroy him. Down goes referee Lee Warren. His attempt to keep some order quickly going by the wayside. Headbutt by Abdullah, then a chop again to referee Lee Warren, who by now is on the floor and calling for help, realizing there is no way one man can keep these two apart. See Lee Warren asking for help from the dressing room, hoping the other wrestlers on the undercard will come out and give him a hand, trying to break up Brody and Abdullah. Look at the packed crowd there behind Brody and Abdullah. Here comes one wrestler. Abdullah grabs him. Brody, Abdullah, they couldn't care less who's in between them. They have sights for only one thing, and that is kicking the tar out of each other. Anybody that gets in the way, they're going to be in trouble. Brody and Abdullah. Here comes Gary Jackson, Night Train Gary Jackson, trying to break it up. Brody, who liked Jackson, with a kick to Jackson's chest, knocking him down. He probably didn't even know it was Gary Jackson. Another guy grabs Brody. Brody grabs him by the head, slams him into the concrete wall, not the pad. Brody's so angry, so out of control, he slammed him into the concrete wall. There's Brody with a water cooler going after Abdullah the Butcher. No way to break it up. Abdullah the Butcher, King Kong Brody, one of the greatest feuds in wrestling history. Brody, Abdullah, and they were in St. Louis like so many other stars. Japan. So this was a Hall of Fame battle between Brody and Dory Jr.
Being famous in St. Louis meant being famous around the world, and so it was with King Kong Brody and Dory Funk Jr., who collided in Tokyo, Japan in 1984. This is a classic war between two Hall of Famers, Dory Funk Jr. and King Kong Brody.
In Texas, Dory Jr., he went to West Texas State University, as did Brody, when he was involved in football before he played briefly with the Washington Redskins and then Canadian League football. Dory Jr. pushing Brody into the corner. Higuchi calling for a break. Brody turning his body so he can't take a punch in the jaw. Very careful, very cautious, knowing the ring. Dory Funk Jr., oh, is one of the real scientific wrestlers who eventually became very adept at brawling. He was one tough cookie. Of course, you spend 4 years as the world heavyweight champion, as Dory Funk Jr. did. You learn a lot. You learn how to take care of yourself because you're a target. You're all alone. You're by yourself. And Dory Funk Jr. was from 1969 to 1973. Off the ropes, leapfrog by Brody, drop kick by King Kong Brody. Did you see that? Great athleticism by Brody, and then he boots Dory Jr. right out of the ring. A leapfrog and a drop kick by a man who weighs at that point about 285 pounds. What an athlete. King Kong Brody pulling off a move on Dory Funk Jr. Jr. actually needed a second to regain his composure. Even though he's familiar with Brody, they've scouted each other, they've seen each other, they've been in the ring in tag team matches. It's amazing. It's amazing as popular as both of these men were that they were never opponents in St. Louis. Brody missing with a big chop as Dory Jr. sidesteps. Brody didn't think too much of that. Bad aim. Jr. It's still a chess match. Brody, Dory Jr. feeling each other out, looking for the weakness, looking for the spot they can attack. Side headlock by Brody on Dory Jr. Jr. bounces Brody off the ropes. Flying tackle by King Kong Brody. Hip toss by Dory Jr. Brody, careful. Dory Jr. knowing how to use that leverage. Brody, not an easy man to get off his feet. He understood balance, understood leverage. It wasn't often that you would see King Kong Brody taken off his feet, but Dory Funk Jr. did it right there with a perfectly executed hip toss. Side headlock, down goes Dory Jr. Brody using his body weight to lay across the chest and neck of Dory Jr., twisting that head a little, bringing it up, squeezing together the jaws, the cheeks of Dory Jr., making it hard for Dory Funk Jr. to breathe, trying to take away a little bit of the steam, a little bit of the stamina from Dory Jr. Off the ropes again. Oh, Brody hangs on. He had that head locked so securely that Dory Jr. couldn't even throw Brody off. Now the forearm up underneath the chin of Brody, but not enough leverage there to really push Brody off. The simple headlock can be so punishing. It can take something out of an opponent, and King Kong Brody knows it very well. Why make it complicated when you can make it simple? Squeeze the head, squeeze the jaws. Dory Jr. bridging, trying to get Brody's shoulders on the mat. Couldn't hold the bridge though. Good move by Dory Jr. Made Brody think. Don't get lazy with it. Don't get too not careful enough. That's a complicated way to say it, but you have to be careful at every second. It only takes a moment, 3 seconds, to get a flash pin. And something like that can happen in a big match between big stars. Dory Jr. finding some room, bouncing that forearm into the rib cage of King Kong Brody. Ooh, another shot right into the lower ribs. Brody taking in the forearm uppercut from Dory Jr. He whips Brody across the ring and into the buckles. Dory Jr. using that educated forearm right in the perfect spots. Forearm uppercut again by Dory Funk Jr., a move that Dory Jr. initiated years back when he was the world heavyweight champion. Snapping that forearm right underneath the jaw of Brody. Brody slashes back with chops to the neck and a kick right into the chest. Ooh, double kick into the chest by King Kong Brody. Down goes Dory Funk Jr. To the air, Brody. Big body slam on Dory Funk Jr. Using one of Dory's own weapons against him. When Dory Funk Jr. won the World Heavyweight title from Gene Kiniski back in 1969, before he clamped on the spinning toe hold that got the submission, a lot of people forget that Dory Jr. scored with 7 straight body slams on Gene Kiniski. He was literally rattling the ring. Fans at ringside said you could see the ring shake that Dory Jr. slammed Kiniski so hard. Kiniski had the championship for 3 years. He was worn out. The road was tough. Dory Jr. knew it, so he did something simple but so effective, the body slam. That actually was Brody using Dory Jr.'s body slam against him. Dory Jr. going for a suplex on Brody. Whoop, that's not going to work. Brody, good balance. Not coming up for Dory Funk Jr. Dory backs Brody to the ropes. Referee Joe Aguchi looking for a clean break. Not getting it from Brody. Brody lashes out. Brody made no mistake about it. He let everybody know, I'm my own man. This is a war inside the ring. This is the way I am. Whether you boo me, whether you cheer me, it really doesn't matter. This is what I have to do to survive. This is what I have to do to be on top. Brody, leg drop on Dory Funk Jr. Dory Jr. getting a little bit of trouble. Brody with a cover, but Dory Jr. kicks out. Now Brody clamping the chin again, trying to take away the breathing, the chance to get air into the windpipe by Dory Funk Jr. Simple but effective. King Kong Brody, very strong upper body, squeezing that head together. Dory Jr. twisting around, but he walks right into the side headlock by Dory Jr. Dory trying to take some of the pressure off by pushing against the chin of Brody. Against the ropes they go. Looking for a break. Dory Jr. hangs onto that arm. Elbow smash right to the chin of King Kong Brody. You can see him flexing his jaw, trying to make sure all his teeth were still there. A couple of forearm uppercuts by Dory Funk Jr. Dory lifts Brody. There's that big body slam by Dory Funk Jr. Don't ever underestimate how strong Dory Funk Jr. is. Dory Jr. double arm suplex, can't get him up. Brody blocking it, ducking his head. Dory Jr. wanted that double arm suplex badly. If he could have gotten that right there, Brody would have been shaken. Brody knew it, used the balance. You look at him, you say he's a wild man. He didn't think. But look at some of the things he's already done in this match with Dory Funk Jr. Dory Jr. was a thinker. He was always planning, plotting in that ring. But so far, Brody's been his equal in this match. Now it's a test of strength. That seems to play into Brody's hands. Dory Jr. down on his knees. Brody leaning into the wrist, the fingers of Dory Funk Jr. Bad leverage position there for Dory Jr. Dory needs to come out of that. Getting his hips away, trying to change the balance. Now he might be able to come back up against Brody. They're almost head-to-head. Dory Jr. doing a nice job coming back in this test of strength against King Kong Brody. Two of wrestling's greatest stars, King Kong Brody, Dory Funk Jr. Nice monkey flip by Dory Jr. He covers Brody, and Brody has to kick out. It was Brody's move to begin with, but Dory Jr. has taken it away from King Kong Brody at this point. Dory Jr. leaning in, and now it's Brody trying to get some leverage back, just using pure, raw, brute power right there to bring Dory Jr. to Dory's knees. Look at that test of strength between Dory Jr. and Brody. As they come to their feet, Brody leaning into their wrists. Look how they're being pushed back on Dory Jr. That hurts, folks. Dory Jr., his wrist bent backwards by Brody, but Dory's able to come off with a drop kick. Oh, Brody knocked through the ropes and onto the apron by that drop kick from Dory Funk Jr. Brody tried to regain his bearings. That drop kick surprised him, and Brody sees the leg there. Look out. Brody dragging Dory Funk Jr. outside the ring and into the audience. Where's Brody going? Oh, into a chair, into a metal folding chair. Brody picking up a chair, drives it into the head of Dory Funk Jr. Oh, bangs the chair on top of Dory Funk Jr.'s head. Dory Jr. taken outside the ring by King Kong Brody, and now it is a Donnybrook. This is a melee, and this is something King Kong Brody excels at like nobody else. Brody was pounding on the head of Dory Funk Jr., picks up another chair, drives it into the throat of Dory Funk Jr. The crowd scattering as Higuchi tries to restore some order. The referee knowing nobody really wants to see a double countout. They want to see this thing finished in the ring. So Higuchi doing the right thing. Oh, look at Dory Jr.'s head split wide open. Dory Jr. bleeding as Joe Higuchi tries to bring the two men back into the ring where they can settle it inside the squared circle. But Dory Funk Jr. bleeding. He's been battered by King Kong Brody, and a kick right to the head of Dory Funk Jr. Dory trying to get into the ring, and it's not easy to do. Look at Brody. He smells it now. He knows that Dory Funk Jr. is in deep trouble, and kicked out of the ring one more time by King Kong Brody. Oh, the blood smeared all over the face of Dory Funk Jr. Higuchi checking the wound. He would stop the match if he thought the cut was too deep. Another kick to the head by King Kong Brody. He drives Dory Jr. to the top turnbuckle. Dory Jr. takes another kick to the chest. Dory Funk Jr. in deep, deep trouble against Brody. Throws a wild punch, not even close. Brody with a chop right to the top of the head. Brody hoisting Dory Jr. big body slam. King Kong Brody going outside the ring. Where's he going? Brody mounting the ropes, going to the top. The bloody Dory Funk Jr. underneath. Brody knowing that Dory Jr. could be ripe for the picking right here. This could be a big victory. Look out. Here comes Dory Jr. And he plucks Brody off the top rope with a body slam and stamps right on the forehead of King Kong Brody, Dory Funk Jr. That's why he was the world champion for 4 years. He's tough. Dory Funk Jr. fighting back against King Kong Brody, and Brody biting the wound of Dory Funk Jr., trying to regain the initiative in this match. Another chop to the throat puts Dory Funk Jr. on the mat. Brody covering, count of one, count of two, and Dory Jr. kicks away. Pride at stake, big money, future main events, reputation. Dory Funk Jr. has his head hooked by King Kong Brody, suplexed by Brody on Dory Funk Jr. A suplex, and Dory Jr. is sinking deeper and deeper into trouble. He tried to come back once, but he couldn't make it. And now Brody, the brute power of King Kong Brody, has damaged Dory Funk Jr. and Brody trying to finish him right now. Brody looking, poises that chop right to the top of the head. Dory Funk Jr. staggering and going down, trying to fight his way back. Look how badly he's bleeding. Dory Funk Jr. How he's hanging in there, it's nothing but a miracle. Try for a pin, count of two, and Dory Jr. slides out from underneath King Kong Brody. Brody must be getting frustrated. Ooh, do you see that boot? Do you see how high he had that leg as he put it right into the jaw of Dory Funk Jr.? That's one flexible athlete there in King Kong Brody, stomping on the head of Dory Funk Jr. Brody a little more careful now. He'd already been sailed off the top rope. This time he goes to the second rope, comes off with a big stomp, almost an atomic drop, shades of Dick the Bruiser onto the chest of Dory Funk Jr. Try for the pin. This could be it. Oh, Dory Funk Jr. Don't ever count out the courage of Dory Funk Jr., even against somebody as rowdy, as violent, as dangerous as King Kong Brody. Dory Jr. trying to fight back with those forearm uppercuts. They still sting. Ooh, that was right on the chin. Dory Jr. nailing Brody with another forearm uppercut. Dory Funk Jr. battling back, goes behind Brody. Brody moves to the ropes, sensed trouble there. Dory Jr. pounding away, hooking the head, trying for the suplex. He was blocked the first time he tried it, but this one, oh, he gets Brody into the air. The suplex by Dory Funk Jr. on King Kong Brody. Is he looking? Yes, the spinning toe hold. The spinning toe hold by Dory Funk Jr. How he won the World Heavyweight Championship. And even Brody has to go to the ropes to get a break from that spinning toe hold. Now that's going to take a toll on Brody. You take a big man's legs away, but Dory Jr. going outside the ring after Brody. He grabs Brody's head and slams him head first into the steel ring post. Brody slammed head first into the steel ring post by Dory Funk Jr. Dory grabbing Brody, slamming him into the press table. Brody being slammed into the press table by Dory Funk Jr. This is desperation now. It's a war. There's nothing to hold back on. Brody again slammed into the steel ring post, trying to get back into the ring. Dory Funk Jr. has battered King Kong Brody. And look at Brody, he's bleeding. Brody, Dory Jr., both masks of blood. Brody and Dory Jr. Forearm uppercuts by Dory Funk Jr. Kikuchi trying to get everybody back. Dory Jr. pounding on Brody. Here's his opening. Wild punches by Dory Jr. and by Brody. Oh, that blow landed on Dory Jr. and on Joe Higuchi. Small package by Dory Funk Jr. to try for the pin. Where's the referee? Here comes Higuchi. Count of 2, and Brody breaks free. Both men bleeding, the blood all over the ring. Dory Jr. going for the Greco-Roman back body drop. Look at Brody. He blocks it. Brody blocks the Greco-Roman back body drop. Covers Dory Funk Jr. The count of 3, Dory Funk Jr. has been beaten by King Kong Brody. Dory Jr. going for that Greco-Roman back body drop. Here it is in slow motion. Look at Brody using the ropes, using the ring. A brilliant move by King Kong Brody, and it's Brody over Dory Funk Jr. What a war, what a match.
SICW returns to the East Carondelet Community Center Saturday, May 17th. This will be a loaded lineup top to bottom to commemorate the 55th anniversary of the first Wrestling at the Chase. It's always been a goal of promoter Herb Simmons and SICW to provide the type of cards that are in the tradition of St. Louis wrestling. Old school, new school, mix it all together. It's a great night of action and entertainment for fans of all ages. Be sure to join us Saturday, May 17th, and every time on TV for our Wrestling Explosion.
He probably didn't even know it was Gary Jackson. Another guy grabs Brody. Brody grabs him by the head, slams him into the concrete wall, not the pad. Brody's so angry, so out of control, he slammed him into the concrete wall. There's Brody with a water cooler going after Abdullah the Butcher. No way to break it up. Abdullah the Butcher. King Kong Brody, one of the greatest feuds in wrestling history. Brody, Abdullah, and they were in St. Louis like so many other stars.